We have got another podcast today with my colleague, comrade, best mate, Omar Feraboli. Did I say the name properly?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
Don't worry, don't worry.
So lots of things we'll try to touch, but main thing we'll try to touch is one of the exhibitions we did. I think that was in
2019.
2019 in
It was
like December.
November, December 2019.
Yeah, I still remember that was a very cold winter, and we were talking about get some mild wine for our
We
guests.
planned to have mild wine outdoor. It was too cold, so we finally had the opening. I remember that Alfio Bernabei, who is the curator of the exhibition, came over from London to give the opening talk. And initially, we planned to have mild wine outside the house building, you remember, because the exhibition was in the house, the foyer. But finally, it was too cold, so we decided to have the. But actually, we couldn't put the mild wine inside because of some.
We're running through our strike as well.
There was a strike as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a strike. So, we are.
Anyway, I remember that we had some mild wine, and only 3 or 4 of us had the mild wine. So we drank only probably 10% of the wine, which was available. But I mean, apparently the mild wine is not important at all. What is important is was the exhibition and the importance of the exhibition, the meaning of the exhibition. And I remember that I saw the exhibition in July 2019. We were at the Socialist Worker Party conference in London, if you remember, Queen Mary University. And I remember that the last day, I can't remember exactly, I think you left with Carlo on the Sunday, probably in the morning, or you had to meet somebody in London. And I saw the announcement of the exhibition, which was called Silvia and Silvio. I was a bit curious because I didn't know anything about these two characters. So I saw the exhibition, and it was very fascinating. It was very fascinating because it was... the story was about Sylvia Pankhurst, who was a very famous suffragette and fighter for civil rights. And Silvio Corio was anarchist and anti-fascist. And what I found out, the exhibition was quite complex. I think there were altogether, if I remember correctly, 9 panels. And in each panel there were pieces of newspapers or other articles of letters, documents from more or less, I think, 1919 until probably the Second World War. And what was interesting and fascinating was first of all, the lives of these two characters. Silvio Corio was born in Turin, and he fled Italy, I think, in 1898. Because, of course, as being an anarchist, he had some problems with the Italian government. There was some rumor that this guy was involved in the killing of the King Umberto I, the King of Italy, but it was probably not true. Also because the guy left Italy in 1898 and the king was killed in 1900. So I don't think there was any connection, but probably was in touch with some other anarchist who took part to the assassination. Anyway, he moved to London and he met Sylvia Pankhurst, and they started to fight together in favor of civil rights and against fascism. And this is something that probably, I knew already about, fascism, of course. Being from Italy, I know quite a lot about it. And also, even if you're not from Italy, you know something about fascism in Italy, Nazism in Germany, the Second World War, and so on and so forth. So some of the documents which were there were something which I knew already about. So for instance, there was something about Antonio Gramsci, Lordi and Wall, which was the magazine which had been established by Antonio Gramsci, and so on and so forth. What I didn't know was that there was a sort of fascist basis in London, even before 1922. 1922 is the year in which Mussolini took the power. march to Rome. I think, I don't remember exactly which period of the year, but it was in 1922. And already in 1920, there was some, they were called fasci in London and some other parts of Britain, I think in Manchester, Glasgow, Edinburgh, and even in Dundee.
Wow.
There were basically groups of Italian fascists who were trying to more or less expand fascism beyond the national boundaries.
Mm.
And in London, they set up a group which was called, I can't remember exactly now. Okay, it was probably Casa del Fascio, which means basically fascist house.
Mm.
And they were trying to do some kind of political propaganda in favor of fascism. Okay, in the end, it was not a very huge movement because it was probably some 100 people altogether.
Mm.
But still, it's quite impressive and important. And what Silvio Corio and Sylvia Pankhurst did was to fight against fascism, not only in the UK, of course, but also in Italy. So they tried to contact other people, other anarchists, socialists, communists, anti-fascists in general, both in Italy and abroad, so mostly I think in France and then in the UK, of course. And they tried to set up a sort of network which was trying to fight against fascism. And the other thing which was impressive was that the then British Prime Minister, Chamberlain, met Berlusconi, okay, Mussolini and Berlusconi are probably very similar anyway. He met Mussolini in Italy, and he said, if I were Italian, I would be fascist.
Wow.
This is something which is impressive because everybody in Italy thinks of Britain as anti-fascist country, liberal, democratic nation, and so forth. But in reality, it's much different. It is. I mean, I'm not saying I don't want to compare Chamberlain with Mussolini, of course.
No.
But still, I mean, it is rather boring and impressive. There's plenty of evidence that Stalin sent several letters to the governments of England, of Britain and the US in order to try to find some agreement to fight Hitler. And the US and Britain never answered. They never answered because they didn't care. They didn't want to make any kind of agreement with Stalin. So what Stalin did was he made the infamous, what's called?
Like non-aggression pact.
Yeah, but it was, Ribbentrop-Molotov pact.
Yeah.
Which basically, the reason that Stalin did was, okay, given that England and the US don't allow me to make an agreement with them, I'm making an agreement with Hitler so that we are not going to fight.
From like international relations perspective, because every country is trying to be a rational actor. They try to maximize their position.
No, going back to Chamberlain, I think it's quite impressive the fact that this guy said, if I were Italian, I would be fascist. And another thing which struck me was the language. The language which was used in the pity of one problem of the exhibition is that, of course, several documents are in Italian. So if you don't speak Italian, you cannot really understand completely the exhibition because I think there are some of them, there's some sort of translation or like a summary, but most of there was a journal which was published by the fascists in London, and it was in English. But this is something everybody can understand, can read and understand. But there are several documents or letters, for instance, like Ordine Nuovo, or from Gramsci, which were in Italian. Of course, unless you speak Italian, you are not able to understand exactly the meaning of this. What was striking was that the language used in these journals and articles is very similar to the language which is used nowadays in Italy and in other several countries in Europe, France, Germany, even the UK. If you think about Brexit, I mean, Brexit it's more or less something similar. It's a sort of, excluding, instead of including more people, it's about excluding them from the society. And okay, it's not as aggressive as it is in Italy, but in Italy over the past maybe say 25 years more or less, the Lega Nord has been, they behaved in a way which was, they use a language which is very similar to the language used by fascists in 1920s and 30s. I find this quite boring because it's a signal that tells you in which direction the society is going. So that's why I like the exhibition, and I contacted Alfio Bernabei. Alfio Bernabei is an historian. He's from Italy, but I think he spent most of his life in England, in London. He used to work for the L'Unità. L'Unità was the official daily newspaper of the Communist Party in Italy, and I think he wrote for other newspapers later on. And now he's a sort of, let's say, freelance journalist. And he wrote extensively about fascism in Britain. He did also 2 documentaries. If you remember, we watched the first part about the Arandora Star tragedy, which was about a ship which deported actually, some Italians and other people from Britain to the US. It sank, and I don't remember how many people died. The strange thing was that most of the Italians who were on the ship were not actually fascists, they were anti-fascist. And this is something again strange, which is related to the exhibition. The fact that the British government, instead of, let's say, fighting and prosecuting the Italian fascists in the UK, they actually they prosecuted the Italian anti-fascists, which is a bit weird. And they did nothing against the fascists. It is very, very strange. And okay, the exhibition is about basically the story of, I mean, it's not only about the story of Sylvia Pankhurst and Silvio Corio was the main character of the exhibition, but it involves also, Antonio Gramsci, L'Ordine Nuovo, which was the magazine created by Gramsci. It more or less uses Sylvia Pankhurst and Silvio Corio as a sort of core of the exhibition. But the exhibition involves much more than this. So it involves struggle against fascism, struggle for civil rights, like Sylvia Pankhurst did in all her life. Because, of course, in this exhibition, there is only what she did against fascism, but she's been fighting for female votes. She's one of the most famous suffragettes in the UK. Fascism in Italy, fascism in the UK, the Arandora Star tragedy. So it goes beyond the main 2 characters, but I think it is very well made. It presents a lot of different, let's say, pieces of evidence. So like pictures, letters, documents, journals, magazines from 1920s onwards. And it is, I think, illuminating in showing the danger posed by fascism in Europe, which is something which, as I said, it's quite boring. It is similar to what's going on nowadays in more or less everywhere in Europe. Think about Italy, but also Germany with the neo-Nazi movement, Hungary, Poland, Marine Le Pen in France. So something which should be used to, let's say, think about and draw some conclusion about similarities in history. I mean, I'm not saying that because history will repeat itself. That's not true, but we should learn from history. And this is a way of learning something from the past, which could be useful to, let's say, to avoid making the same mistakes.
I mean, especially like when you were talking about, this like Chamberlain when he was visiting Italy, and he's saying that, so these are powerful words, isn't it? So when he talks like that, he tried to actually normalize those words, isn't it? And then when these words came with full force in like mid 1930s, it was too late. I mean,
too late. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Late.
Yeah.
So like, people like, Sylvia Pankhurst or like Silvio Corio. So these people were talking about these things from like early 20th century, like from 19.
And Silvio Corio actually was I think he wrote something about the possibility of a war just after the First World War. So he realized that this kind of politics sooner or later will lead to a war again. It's clear. Of course, as you said, it's a sort of process of normalization during which people accept this kind of politics, this kind of behavior. And when you realize that it is dangerous, it is too late.
Like, I mean, with me personally, like the more I read about this, like Sylvia Pankhurst, I mean, it's such an amazing character, isn't it? So her mother was Emily Pankhurst, all those movements about like suffragettes. So she was successful. But if you look at her, relationship with like Sylvia, they actually fell out before First World War because Sylvia was against war. So she was an anti-war. Emily Pankhurst actually joined the Conservative Party. So, I mean, this is like, it also shows the society's outlook about, things like Bolshevism. Once the war started, her mother, her sister, all were totally on board for this war. But Sylvia Pankhurst was, saying that, this is dangerous move for Europe. And then you saw like those catastrophic events happened. And even after like the First World War, she was arrested because she was asking, the dockers in like London, basically she was pleading them not to, put those arms in the ship so that the shipment will not go to, to fight against like Soviet Union, because Soviet Union just came out from this this revolution. And then she ended up in a jail, and then she was, I think, jailed for like 6-7 months. In terms of like Silvio Corio, I mean, what else we know about him? Because I heard that he was in the army. He was trained. I think it's like compulsory, isn't it? He had to.
When Italy was compulsory, of course, you cannot avoid it. He was a typographer. I think he left Italy in 1898. I was sure about
I mean,
he moved to France first. He moved to France. He spent some time in France, and then I think probably after 2-3 years he moved to London. He wrote for one journal which was published by anti-fascist in Italy. So he tried to involve other socialists or anarchists, Italian anarchists, socialists based in the UK against fascism. And he was a very important character in the anti-fascist movement in London. There was one guy who was actually was a spy. He was a spy of the fascists. So he was basically joining the movement created by Silvio Corio, another anti-fascist in London, in order to get some information and to control what those people were doing.
I'm just trying to get some kind of picture. Okay, I think that's her mother, isn't it? So that's like Sylvia Pankhurst. That's her mother.
Yeah, Sylvia Pankhurst on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's her sister. I think sister's name is Christabel Pankhurst. Obviously, Silvio Corio, when he left country, he basically fled from Italy, isn't it?
Yeah.
For his survival, he came to London and then met this small group of people who are doing those activism on the ground. So ideas about socialism. It's quite a new thing for like even like people in London. So then these people were meeting around places like Soho, the core of the London's elites. I mean, but also bear in mind, I think Sylvia Pankhurst family is quite well-off family because her father was a barrister. So we are talking about this is a very middle-class family, and I think she was actually running a newspaper, socialist kind of paper. So because I mean she was not sure about this this like suffragette movement. She was saying that it might be some kind of middle class women's right rather than equal right for everyone.
That's clear. Yeah.
So she was quite critical. First World War more or less made her more revolutionary, isn't it? So basically she fell out of the family because she really believed those ideas. The society needs to be more equal rather than just like the society for the middle class. Do you want me to tell about her story about this, like writing poetry? She was writing poems when she was thrown into jail. She was arrested because of her revolutionary idea. And when she was in the jail, She was going through some kind of hunger strike as well. And in the prison those days, it was quite brutal. So she was in lots of trauma during her prison time, and also seeing other women in that prison, the working class women, the prostitutes, and all those, the people who are, from the underclass of like London. And she was asking for the prison people that, can I have some pen and paper so that I can write something? So she was not allowed to have any pen and paper, and then ended up like writing on the prison's wall with a chalk. The book she published, the poetry book, I think it's around 47 pages. And the book's title was Read on Cold Slate. Kind of makes sense that she was writing those on prison's cold wall, basically documenting her trauma, her experiences with other inmates. That the state came after her with full force. It's not like she was doing, like she did some serious crime. She was not. Her movement was basically social movement, and her movement was mainly anti-war movement, nothing else. But also there's another story, is like there's an MP in like Manchester, someone called Keir Hardie. So he was a very socialist guy, like one of those guys, very, very socialist involved. I'm not sure how much, Silvio Corio was involved in that kind of discussion. It seems like he also influenced quite a bit on like Sylvia's, idea about this, like learning about socialism, Bolshevism. Sylvia Pankhurst, and obviously like Silvio Corio, both are like, like they're like free people, isn't it? They talked about freedom, the proper freedom, not this kind of, tokenism. They talked about the real freedom, real emancipation of the working class. And it's for everyone, so that all can be free, not like, particular group of people in the society. So I think from that point of view, like the people like Sylvia Pankhurst, these people should be brought back in our education, in our, learning, because these people, fought hard, did not compromise. And there's another story about Sylvia Pankhurst. I mean, Silvio Corio and Sylvia's son, I think his name is Richard Pankhurst, and he became a famous scholar, but he actually focused on Ethiopia. So most of his writing are actually on.
Because Silvia died in Ethiopia. She fought for Ethiopia initially against the Italian invasion in the 1930s, and later on for other political reasons. And I think she died there in 1960.
60, yeah.
And she was fighting basically colonialism. I don't know whether she picked up Ethiopia because Italy invaded Ethiopia in 1935.
1935, yeah. But why Italy went after this, seriously poor country?
Mussolini said that Italy wanted an empire.
It's not like, Abyssinia.
Yeah, but probably because those were the countries who have been invaded by the British or by the Germans or by somebody else. So they take what was available, probably.
So like there are not many countries left for him. And one of the things I do in my own teaching, like League of Nations, the League of Nations. So Italy was like one of the core members. Obviously Britain was there as well. So these are the core members who are doing all those nasty things around the world. And more or less, they could not stop each other. Even like Japan was, invading Manchuria. Italy was invading Abyssinia. And obviously, Germany was planning all kind of bad things in Europe. And obviously Spanish Civil War as well already started.
Yeah.
And everyone was busy with like all kind of war. So like Mussolini was inspired from European, this idea about, war enterprise. Let's make some money or kill some people. And I think, Italy's invasion in Abyssinia, like Ethiopia, was really, really brutal, because he was using all kind of, banned weapons like poison gas, all kind of things.
In Italy, it is presented as something nice. They don't mention anything about brutality. They mention that some people in Ethiopia still like the Italians. That, for instance, in Addis Ababa, there are some places with Italian names, which means nothing. It doesn't mean anything, because in India, there are plenty of places with English names, but I don't think that Indians like English.
When Italy was sending all those warships, so they were using the Suez Canal to go through, like from Mediterranean to that part of the world. And the Suez Canal during that time was controlled by France and the UK. So like these other two core members of the League of Nations, even the Abyssinians, like the Ethiopia's king actually came to Geneva to the League of Nations meeting and pleading to the world leaders that, what the hell is going on in my country? So you created this League of Nations. You promised us that you will protect us where you are now. So that was a very powerful speech, given there. And then the problem with the Suez Canal was, instead of put a block in the Suez Canal, Britain and France kept the Suez Canal open over time, extra hours. The sanctions they put on Italy, I think they put sanctions on like rubber export. So which actually affected Ethiopia more than Italy, because Ethiopia's main export item is actually rubber. I mean, but you can see so those things were normalized, isn't it, in the mainstream political discourse, that, those things, acceptable. And people accepted in Europe. No one raised any serious
It's the same nowadays. I mean, nothing has changed.
So if people like Sylvia Pankhurst, went to Ethiopia and then, showed her solidarity, I think that's a serious thing to do, isn't it? I mean, it showed her, serious goodwill for the people who don't have any power or don't have any kind of, support from the big, powerful countries. So I think that's another powerful story behind this couple. I mean,
because basically, as you said before, they were fighting together against fascism. I don't know exactly whether Sylvia Pankhurst decided to do something for Ethiopia because of Italy, but I suppose this is it's one reason, because basically Italy invaded Ethiopia, and I think it's normal that if you're anti-fascist, you tend to do something which has to do with Italy, probably.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they did something together for Ethiopia during 1930s and I think 40s probably. She became honorary citizen of Ethiopia.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, which quite interesting. So the whole family has got this legacy of fighting for the the people who don't have the power. So her son Richard Pankhurst. So he's also a scholar on Ethiopia, and also he was just quite respected in Ethiopia. I mean, when I was reading Sylvia's poem, I mean, it's a very powerful poem. But I mean, if you look at her biography, nowhere it mentioned that Sylvia Pankhurst was a poet as well. And then some of the poems, I mean, I read, I mean, it's very revolutionary, very, very. I think it's got a serious value for even modern day literature. So it was quite surprising that there's nothing much done on her poetry. Whole collection of those poems are actually anti-state, anti-prison system, so that the state's power, the state's oppressive power. So she was very critical about so during that time is the Britain was the pinnacle of the civilization, isn't it? So they're talking about all the good things about lives, about culture, about society, about civilization, but at the same time they're doing all those very, very oppressive things.
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't call it civilization, but there is a wonderful movie, Italian movie, which I think from the 60s, which is called Anni Ruggenti, which is, I think in English, Roaring Years, is from 1962, in which, okay, the story is very, very complicated, but it shows that Italians were trying to show more than what they actually had. And I don't know whether it is a joke, whether it is something true, but it seems that when Hitler visited Italy, in 1930, I don't know, 35, 36. And you had to look at the army. It seems that Mussolini had, let's say, I don't know, 10 airplanes. He showed 10 airplanes to Hitler in Milan. And then when they went to Rome, he moved the same 10 airplanes to Rome. He showed Hitler the same. So Hitler thought that the entire army was, very, very, very well prepared with a large number of weapons and devices and whatever. Well, actually, it wasn't true. And it was just a way for Mussolini to pretend he had more than what actually he had.
But it's quite fascinating, isn't it, this character, Mussolini? I mean, like fascinating in a sense that is that comical, isn't it? The way he was talking, the way he was, all his like gestures were very, very comical. There's nothing leadership there, isn't it? But people fell for it.
Well, it is. I don't know. It is the way it works. I mean, the rhetoric of the fascists was about the Roman Empire. So Mussolini copied a lot of things from the Roman Empire, which in the end it was true because the Roman Empire was something. I mean, I don't want to say something good about the Roman Empire, but let's say Mussolini tried to more or less steal some symbols and something from the history of the Roman Empire to use as a way to argue we are representing the old Roman Empire, so we are one of the biggest forces in the world. We have the right to use this power and all this kind of crap.
I mean, like how religious he was.
Well, he was socialist before.
He was. Yeah,
establishing. He was the leader. It was the. I think for some years he was the director of L'Avanti, which was the daily newspaper of the Socialist Party in Italy. And like many socialists, he was in favor of the First World War. This subject I never understood in Italy.
Yeah,
several socialists.
I think that applies to Germany as well.
Were in favor of the war.
Yeah,
and when he was a socialist, he hated the church. He hated priests, so he was anti-religious. But then I suppose that he had to become religious because of convenience. As you know, in Italy, if you want to do any kind of politics, you have to deal with the church. The church is so powerful that there is no way you can do politics. Even the Communist Party, after the Second World War, I mean, I know many people who were communists and they were Christians. Because in one sense, you must. If you're not, you lose some popularity. If you want to be popular, you have to, in some way, you have to pretend. I mean, I don't think they're Christian. I don't think that Mussolini believed in God like some people do. I don't think that those guys care about this. They just use religion or anything. It's just religion because, of course, it's another way. It's a means to get to the power, to stay in power. And but actually, both Hitler and Mussolini signed agreements with the church. We studied something about the ethical values of the church. I mean, the church the Pope signed agreement with Hitler, Mussolini. They defended Pinochet. They defended Franco in Spain. So it's something which is a bit worrying, but.
I mean, these histories are quite problematic, isn't it? So, it's not like Mussolini is gone, Hitler is gone, but church is still there, isn't it?
Well, another thing is this: the church has lasted for more than 2,000 years now.
Yeah, so I mean,
it's something that it has say very deep roots in society, and I think it's impossible to get rid of this.
So it's like kind of survival of the fittest. They survived, isn't it? They knew the game, they played the game, and then and then they're still on the top of everything.
There is a wonderful sentence in Italian which says "Scherza coi fanti, ma lascia stare I santi," which means you can mock or you can make a joke let's say, with people who are not religious. So you can make joke about politicians or anyone else, but leave the saints alone. So don't make joke. So in other words, you can mock or you can have fun with anything which is not religious, but religion is sort of above all these issues of mockery or having fun, having making jokes.
Whenever I think about this, like Sylvia Pankhurst, during that time, I mean, she was a female member of the society. So we are talking about the society was, patriarchal, where, the control, the power held by the men in the society. And then she came out, as that powerful voice, publishing her own newspaper. I think that was a powerful story. So I think, this is the story about freedom, the story about like emancipation of everyone. And then you can see like how her persona became like overshadowed by her mother, because she did something, she achieved something. But for Sylvia's, the things, the goals she tried to achieve, those were impossible for the society to achieve.
Yeah, those there was something which probably the most of the people didn't, I wouldn't say they didn't like, I didn't care. And that's why, I mean, this reason why you said her mother is in the UK is still more famous than Sylvia, because
but the flip side of the script is Sylvia was actually doing the biggest fight. She was fighting for the equality of everyone. That's the story of our world, isn't it? That the real heroes never been actually real heroes in the society.
Yeah, they are forgotten
or shot dead, or killed, assassinated,
probably intentionally.
Yeah, the way we try to see Western world is like liberal democracy and the right for workers and all those things, but at the same time there's a serious inequality in the society. But also this society can be a bit of equal, but at the same time they don't want any third world country to be equal, because that can create problem for the supply line of the capitalism and all those profit making thing. You kind of mentioned that the history does not repeat itself necessarily, but I mean at the same time these are the things we saw it before Second World War. And then
that's what I say. We should at least we should learn. And the fact that it doesn't repeat itself exactly, it doesn't mean that it could say repeat in a way which is similar. Not the same. I don't think that we're going to have a war like the Second World War, but we might have something similar. Who knows?
I mean, you can see like the interwar period, especially, there are hundreds of books being written, hundreds of scholarly research articles being published about this rise of fascism, rise of ultranationalism. These are the road to disaster, isn't it? This is the road for serious war, the catastrophic war, the collapse of the system. Hence, those things still are quite common when you read newspaper. You kind of carry on with your life without saying that, oh, this is just not right.
It's boring. It is worrying. I think it is really worrying.
So I think that carefulness, that awareness is so important. Any given
being aware is the first step. If you're not aware of the issues, then of course there is no way you address that issue. That's clear. This is the same for any kind of issue. It's about income inequality. It's about poverty. It's about democracy. It's about environment. If you're not aware of the issue, then okay, you don't even know that this issue might be a problem, or it might get worse, or it might lead to troubles in the future. In a typical mentality of most of people in the Western world, what is real has to do with money. So with production, consumption. So if you produce something, if you consume something, or if you're involved in any kind of production activity, that's fine. But if you do something like education, you don't produce anything. Education is something different. It's not, I mean, doing education is not the same as producing a car or food or whatever, or I don't know, pullover, jumper, or whatever else. So they think that this is something useless, and it is just good for, this group of academics who have nothing else to do, and they keep talking about this issue without actually thinking about the real what they think it is the real world, and they don't realize that the real world is actually changed, and it is affected by the way we behave.
Try to bring like some of the Sylvia's like contribution to the society, when she was doing this newspaper for the women's right, first of all, and then second is for the workers' right during that time. I think that was something. It's just, when you talk about these people, just like Sylvia Pankhurst or Silvio Corio, there's such an important people for the society, for humanity, and then how they were just totally forgotten.
Let's say, I think it's probably the discussion of the debate is too big, and that's why I'm very pessimistic that there is no way to improve. But the whole approach to education should be changed. I mean, in school, I don't know in this country, but when I was a child, I remember that we were taught about the fact that the Roman Empire was such a good thing. All the topics about history are about people who were actually criminals, like Julius Caesar, all the emperors, and so forth. And we never learn anything about, for instance, scientists who did something for humanity, like they solved or finding new medicines or fighting for freedom, for civil rights, like Martin Luther King or Sylvia Pankhurst, Silvio Corio, or I don't know, or Karl Marx or Bakunin or other people. They are either completely forgotten or they're shown in a light which is completely different. So
but also these are the people kind of learned with like contempt as well. These people are taught as these are the losers, isn't it? These people are losers.
They did something, but who cares about them? We care about the big shots.
And then when like people like Sylvia Pankhurst, these people challenged the First World War. No one listened to them. Rather they went for the war, and then subsequent wars, and then and then the whole thing is lost. And then we ended up with like more war. We saw Second World War, we saw Vietnam War, Korean War, Iraq War, Afghanistan War, goes on and on. Because we never listened to those people.
There are people who think that war is normal.
So that's the thing, isn't it? So the crisis is normal, war is normal, climate change is normal. But it looks like this normalizing the catastrophic events create lots of opportunity for very small number of people, and then more or less direct the society to fulfill their aim. I mean, my plan is to, because the more I read these people, the more I feel like so excited. This is amazing stories. So my plan is to do like more work on these people, and then do like more public events. Just like we should
do that. I mean, I thought the same. I thought that. I don't know whether
and then invite the students to like come, like join us, and then have a discussion. Because I really want to revive these people. Okay, Omar. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you so much. Bye.